So we would cover the review of this chapter 5 and 6. These are few slides. These are not detailed slides as opposed to the notes and or the videos that we have conducted. But that gives you the major idea or the big idea or the bigger picture we have. So we started off the discussion on chapter 5 and 6 with the passband modulation trade-offs. And then we said that if you want higher data rate, higher spectral efficiency, high power efficiency, and robustness to the channel, then we should go towards the digital modulation techniques. And then within the digital modulation techniques, we said that we would go towards the amplitude /phase modulation, MPSK and MQAM, because these have higher spectral efficiency as compared to frequency shift keying and other non-linear modulation schemes, which are relatively more power efficient. So we said that our focus would be the linear modulation scheme, specifically MPSK and MQAM. So we started off the discussion on the linear modulation schemes with the signal space concept. That was a review material, and we said that the signal space analysis, the main advantage of the signal space analysis is that it allows to represent signals as a basis function, as a linear combination of some basis functions, or as a projection on the set of the basis functions. In other words, your signal space representation changes to a vector space representation, and then that's pretty easy to analyze, because then you can work with a vector calculus and the distances between the different constellation points in the vector domain to infer the performance of different modulation schemes. That is a key advantage of the signal space analysis. And we said that although we can have capital N number of basis function, which is less than or equals to capital M, which is your modulation order or the number of symbols, unique symbols that you want to transmit. But typically, we would make use of only two dimensions, one related to cosine of 2 pi fct, and the other would be related to sine of 2 pi fct. And then we discussed different specific modulation schemes, starting with the MPAM, which is pulse amplitude modulation. This pulse amplitude modulation, because the information is encoded only in the amplitude and not in the phase, we only require one-dimensional constellation point. And this would mean that every constellation point would have its unique amplitude. As a result, every symbol would have different symbol energy. And then we have to talk about the average symbol energy to compute what is the average symbol error probability. As opposed to Ji Saban.
सर मैंने पूछना था कि जो बेसिस फंक्शन है, हमने बेसिकली वो हमने आपने एक 1 और एक 2 बेसिकली दो बेसिस फंक्शन हमें बताए थे। सब वो इसलिए क्योंकि हमारे जो सिग्नल है वो अब 2 डायमेंशनल है, क्योंकि एक उसकी डायमेंशन एम्पलीट्यूड और एक उसकी फेज है। अगर हमारा सिग्नल 3 डायमेंशनल या 4 डायमेंशनल होता तो बेसिस फंक्शन भी हमारे उस हिसाब से मतलब उतने ही होते हैं, उतने ज़्यादा होते हैं।
बेसिस फंक्शन हमारे इस सूरत में भी काफी ज्यादा हो सकते हैं। वी कैन हैव कैपिटल N लेस देन और इक्वल्स टू M बेसिस फंक्शंस, जो कि एक दूसरे से ऑर्थोनॉर्मल होंगे, ऑर्थोगोनल होंगे। देयर इज अ प्रोसीजर कॉल्ड ग्राम-श्मिट प्रोसीजर that allows you to compute that basis function. यहाँ पर हमने सिर्फ cosine और sine लिए हैं for the sake of simplicity, and which allows us to have a complete information about many digital modulation schemes. लेकिन we can still have more than 2 basis functions. So जो आपकी number of the basis function है उसके ऊपर जो bound है, that is your size of the set आप कह लें, what number of unique symbols that you want to transmit. If your capital M is the number of unique symbols that you want to transmit, then you can have N less than or equals to M basis functions here. Does that answer your question, Suman? We can have more than 2 basis function as well here, even in this case as well.
Yes, sir.
So then we came towards the phase shift keying, and we said that the phase shift keying has information encoded in both in amplitude as well as, sorry, the information encoded only in the phase of the constellation point. That means all the constellation points have the same amplitude, or they lie on a circle of a constant radius, but the phase is different from one constellation point to another constellation point. We said that it is very difficult to obtain exact expression for the probability of symbol error. That would have been done in a course of digital communications, but here we resorted to a nearest neighbor approximation to analyze the NPSK modulation, that is phase shift keying modulation, where you have capital M number of unique symbols to transmit. And then finally, we talked about quadrature amplitude information modulation, which encodes information both in the phase as well as the amplitude. And again, you require a 2-dimensional constellation here because the phase is also changing. Then we said that we derived the equation for a M-QAM for a square constellation, and we said that for a square constellation, we can represent an M-QAM constellation as a 2 M-PAM constellation points. That means if you project your a square constellation onto one basis function, that would be similar to a M-ARRY-PAM modulation, and then you compute that we called a branch, and then we computed the branch error probability, and then we also in order to compute the exact expression, we said that the probability of the correct detection would be 1 minus the error probability in one of the branch. Square of that would be the probability of the correct detection for both the branches. 1 minus that square, that would give you the error probability, symbol error probability for a M-QAM modulation scheme for a square constellation. And then we said for non-square constellation, for example, rectangular constellation, you can have different approximations like nearest neighbor to analyze the quadrature amplitude modulation. Any questions regarding these important points? I don't see a hand raised. Okay. So here you can see different two different constellation diagrams for a 16 QAM constellation points. We said that for a QAM modulation, both the amplitude as well as the phase would change from one constellation point to another constellation point. So on the left hand side, you see on the left hand side you see a square constellation. Let me find out if I can find a pointer here. So this is, you can see that it's a square constellation, and as opposed to this, it's a non-square constellation. And then nice. So this is better. This is your square constellation. This is a non-square constellation point. And then for a square constellation, if you see these, all of these points, if you project onto the first basis function here, you would get a M-ARRY-PAM constellation point. So for all of these projections, you would have M-ARRY-PAM, and then you can compute the error probability for a M-ARRY-PAM constellation points. Similarly, if you project these constellation points onto the other basis function, you would get a very similar projection very similar pattern, but that would be on the basis function phi 2 of t. And then as we have seen, we can find out what is the exact error probability equation for these square constellation points. And then we also talked a little about differential modulation, differential phase shift keying, where the advantage of the differential modulation scheme is that you don't require a synchronization at the receiver end, because the previous symbol acts as a reference for the current symbol. As a result, you don't need a synchronization or a coherent receiver at the receiver end, which is a big advantage. That simplifies your receiver architecture, but that is at the cost of a 3 dB penalty in the performance compared to coherent modulation schemes. And then we saw that if we make use of the moment generating function approach, that is very, very useful for to compute the error probability, symbol error probability of a differential modulation scheme for under the fading environment. Why? Because its error probability for DPSK has a very simple expression. That is just an exponential expression that is 1/2 e to the power minus gamma b. So that is a very simple expression for a and it has an exponential in it. So moment generating function approach, which is nothing but something related to the Laplace transform, that helps a lot, especially in the case of differential modulations. So okay. So this slide is about pulse. This slide is about pulse shaping. So we haven't talked a lot about pulse shaping. But, sorry, I'm not still, yeah. But you would have studied that in your undergrad, that different pulse shapes have a different spectral properties, especially the root raised cosine pulses have the spectrum drawn here for different values of the roll-off factor. So you can see that if a roll-off factor is 0, it's a spectrum of a sync pulse. And then as you increase your roll-off factor from 0 towards 1, you need more and more bandwidth. But in the time domain, your signal becomes has a decay rate which is much faster, so that you have it is robust to the jitter noise induced at the sampling instant. So you can see that the sync pulse decays not at a very sharp rate. You have a very high, very strong side lobes, and if you make an error on the sampling instant, you would get significant amount of interference from the adjacent symbols. So all of these are zero ISI pulses, by the way, because they create zero intersymbol interference at the sampling instant. But there is nothing like a perfect sampler in this world. So you would always have a small jitter around the sampling instant, and as a result, you want a pulse shape that is robust to that jitter noise, so that if you make an error in this at the sampling instant, it does not cause you a lot of interference. So that is pulse shaping. That is a topic we haven't really studied in this chapter. So we'll move on unless we have some questions. Okay. So then finally we try to compute what are the symbol error probabilities of, we try to generalize an equation for the symbol error probabilities for the linear modulation schemes. We said that we would have a transmitted signal of the form which is given here. So S of t, which is your transmitted signal, would be Si1, which is your projection of the signal onto the first basis function. G of t is a pulse shape, times cosine of 2 pi fct minus Si2, which is your projection on the second basis function. G of t is a pulse shape, times sine of 2 pi fct plus phi naught. So this is your constellation point for the ith symbol. And then we said that your symbol error probability would depend on two or three things. One is what is called the minimum distance between the constellation points. So in the videos you would have seen that we have talked about each and every modulation schemes, and we have talked about the minimum distance between the constellation points for that particular modulation schemes, and what symbol error probability equation you would get, and all of these were of the form of this. So your symbol error probabilities, you can generalize an equation which would be approximately equals to some alpha m q function of root beta m gamma s. So this beta m and alpha m would depend on what constellation, what modulation scheme you have been using, and what approximation that is being used to compute the symbol error probability. So that is a generic equation, and once we have this generic equation, we can make use of the generic equation when we do the performance analysis under the fading scenario. So we said that once we have that expression, the previous expression, this expression, this is your performance under the AWGN channel, remember. So if you want to compute, this is your symbol error probability under an AWGN channel. Now if you want to compute the symbol error probability under a fading environment, you have to average this performance over the fading distribution. So that averaging operation is typically difficult for most of the fading distributions, except for the Rayleigh fading, for which we said that it is relatively easy to compute the average symbol error probability for the Rayleigh fading, because it has a simple fading distribution, that is exponential distribution. And then we said that we can make use of the alternate moment generating function approach to compute the error probability, symbol error probability in the wireless environment. And for that, we said that we should have an alternate Q function representation. So here you have this Q of Z, which is a traditional Q function, in which is the probability that a standard normal random variable is greater than some value Z, and that is defined as integral from Z to infinity 1 over root 2 pi e to the power minus x square over 2 dx, where your x is a standard normal random variable. So you have this infinite integrand, and this Z is appearing in the limits of the integral. So there is a new representation. It's not a new representation. It should be called alternate representation, which was proposed by Craig in 1993, which takes care of both of these problems. So now you have an integrand that is of finite duration. So you have to integrate from 0 to pi by 2, and then your Z is not appearing in the limits as well. So it's a finite integral involving, you have of course Z square here, but it's a finite integral. So this alternate representation of the Q function allows us to get what is called the closed form expression for the symbol error probability for linear modulation schemes. So in linear modulation scheme, if you want to do the analysis for the linear modulation scheme in fading, we said that there can be 3 different performance metrics that we can talk about. The first performance metric is the outage probability. So we said that if your symbol interval TS is such that it can have lots of coherence time within it, that means it is much greater than the coherence time of the channel. That means once it goes into a deep fade, it would remain into a deep fade for large number of symbol durations. Then in that case, the first performance metric, that is the outage probability, makes the most sense. So outage probability is something that we have been working on since the very start. So outage probability is defined as the probability that your symbol error probability is greater than your target symbol error probability, and that would translate to that your instantaneous signal to noise ratio is less than your gamma target. So that is your outage probability. If and that would be the performance metric when your symbol interval is much greater than the coherence time of the channel. And then we said that if your symbol interval is is of the order of the coherence time, then the average symbol error probability would make more sense. And the average symbol error probability is nothing but your symbol error probability in an AWGN channel, and then you would average it out over the fading distribution. So P of gamma here is the PDF of the fading distribution. And then we said that if we have both slow fading and fast fading in the channel, then the performance matrix that would make more sense is the combined outage and average symbol error probability, PS. Do we have any questions about what I've been saying? Please raise your hand if somebody has questions. If you won't stop me, I would continue like this. So Juan, do you have any question or remark?
नहीं सर अभी तक ठीक है, बस सर ये एवरेज जो आपने ये एरर प्रोबेबिलिटी ये जो हमारे पास सेकंड केस है एवरेज वाला, इसमें इसका जरा बता दें, ये इस केस में हमारे पास जो सिग्नल है उसकी जो टाइम है वो कोहेरेंस टाइम के इक्वल है, तो उसमें अभी हमने जो फेडिंग है वो उसकी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ही हमने अभी डिसाइड की कि कौन सी fading distribution.
That can be anything. That can be anything. So your fading distribution can be Rayleigh fading, can be Rician fading, can be Nakagami fading. It can be anything. So this P of gamma can be anything. So if you would watch the videos as well, you would see that the power in the moment generating function approach is that it allows you to compute the average symbol error probability under any type of fading distribution. So all you need to do is, once you have the moment generating function for a particular distribution, then if you are able to represent your average symbol error probability as a function of the moment generating function, all you need to do is to replace the respective moment generating function of the respective fading distribution in order to compute the average symbol error probability under that particular fading distribution. So yes, this fading distribution can be anything. This can be Rayleigh fading, this can be any other type of fading as well. And moment generating function approach is especially useful in computing the average symbol error probability for a variety of fading distributions. More questions regarding this? Usman, are you with us? आपको clear है, कोई question तो नहीं?
जी सर, नहीं सर, जी सर मैं सुन रहा हूँ, अभी समझ आ रही.
That's great. That's great. I'm just asking so that I sometimes I don't keep track of if you are listening to me properly. So if that is the case, please raise your hand or even you can unmute your mic to let me know that my voice is not clear or some connection issues has occurred or something of those sort. So let's carry on. Right. So the first performance metric is the outage probability. So this means that the channel is undergoing slow fading, and once it goes into deep fade, so this is your signal to noise ratio, instantaneous signal to noise ratio, and this, for example, is your threshold beyond which you would declare outage, and your symbol interval is really small. So once, for example, this instantaneous signal to noise ratio goes into deep fade, it remains into deep fade for a very, very long time. That means for tens or hundreds of symbol intervals. So that means you would have error in bursts, and then the outage probability is the metric that you would use. The average symbol error probability would be when your coherence time is of the order of the symbol interval, and then you have to average your symbol error probability in an AWGN channel over the fading distribution. So we have talked about this, and then we said that the alternate Q function approach can allow us to have a closed form expression for linear modulation scheme. So let's see what's next. Right. So if our fading channel is such that it undergoes both slow and fast fading, then you have to go towards a combined outage and average symbol error probability. So in this picture, this red.
Sir, I have a question. जो first case होता है जिसमें हम कहते हैं कि coherence time is larger than the signal duration. तो सर इसका मतलब जो सिग्नल है उसकी बैंडविड्थ जो कोहेरेंस बैंडविड्थ है उससे ज्यादा है. तो सर उस केस में तो हमारा जो सिग्नल होता है
एक मिनट इधर ये सुभान रुक जाएं. जो कोहेरेंस टाइम है that has nothing to do with the coherence bandwidth first of all.
सही ठीक है.
Coherence time is related to the Doppler से ये हो गया. This coherence time is related to the Doppler or how fast you are moving.
ठीक है सर.
कोहेरेंस बैंडविड्थ से इसका कोई ताल्लुक ही नहीं है.
सही वो मुझे उससे कंफ्यूजन हो गई.
नहीं इसका कोहेरेंस, this is the coherence time, it has nothing to do with the coherence bandwidth.
जी सर.
आपका फिर वो thought of line of thought ही change हो जाएगा फिर.
जी सर मुझे लगा कि वो 1 over coherence bandwidth हो रही है.
नहीं that's I think that this is a very important point, by the way. That's a very common misconception, and I would like every student to give a lot of attention to this, because it's a generically, because the terms are so related, coherence time and coherence bandwidth, you would typically assume that one is the reciprocal of the other, but that is not the case at all, because these are two independent dimensions of the channel. One is a Doppler spread, one is related to the delay spread. So both of these are independent dimensions of the wireless channel.
Yes sir, मुझे सर ये पता था, लेकिन बस वो मैं coherence time देख रहा था, वो coherence bandwidth के साथ थोड़ा वो
बिल्कुल सही. Thank you for your question. Actually, whenever you ask a question, that enables a lot of answers for a lot of other students जिनके ज़हन में ये होता है. So thanks for the question. Right, so we have three performance metrics. First is the outage probability, second is the average symbol error probability, and the third case is the combined outage and average symbol error probability, where this red curve is your instantaneous signal to noise ratio. That is because of the multipath fading, and then if you average that out, you would get this slow fading curve, that is the black line, and then if you that would be your average gamma s bar. That would still be a random variable, and then you can, if you average it out, still you would get a single line that would be gamma s double bar, which would be the average of the distribution of the instantaneous signal to noise ratio, average over both the slow fading as well as the fast fading. So that would give you gamma s double bar. So it is so you would have both the outage as well as the average symbol error probability. The first thing would be, how would you declare outage? So for that, you must determine what is your target signal to noise ratio. So if you have this PS bar target, which is your target symbol error probability, which is the target symbol error probability, you would compute the gamma s naught bar from the distribution of the fading. So I'm taking a 2-minute pause here because of the azan that is going on. So we'll stay online, but we would listen to the azan. Okay. So let's start. So we were discussing. So everybody can hear me. So Ban, you can act as a moderator.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have this instantaneous signal to noise ratio that is fluctuating a lot because of the multipath fading. And then you average it out over that, you would get a distribution of the slow fading, which would be the distribution of the gamma S bar. And then as you have to decide for the PS bar target, the important thing here is that you would be deciding for the PS bar target based on your fading distribution. For example, if this multipass fading is Rayleigh fading, then you would compute the required signal to noise ratio, which gives you a target simple error probability from the fading distribution curve, right? For example, if you required a target SNR, if you required a target simple error probability of 10 to the power minus 4, and this multipath fading is your Rayleigh fading, then you would compute, first step is you would compute which average simple error probability gives you this PS bar target, and that you would compute from the Rayleigh fading curve, and that as shown in the videos as well, that would be 34 dBs. So you would first compute what is your average simple error probability that gives you the target, it gives you the average simple error probability from the distribution, from the fading distribution's error probability curve, not from the AWGN curve in this case. So once you have that gamma S bar, and then you can compute what is the gamma S double bar from the using the Q function approach, because your gamma S double bar would now be the average of this gamma S bar, which is nothing but a log normal fading distribution. So because the slow fading, it is typically assumed to be a log normal fading distribution. And if that is the case, you can compute that gamma S double bar from the using the Q function approach. So this topic, as I've said, has been explained in the last video which I uploaded just last night, I think. So you can go ahead and you can go ahead and watch that video. But nevertheless, if you have questions, please go ahead. Any questions regarding this? Usman has gone. Cannot see Usman here. Okay. जी सुभान.
सर मेरा इससे तो नहीं, मेरा थोड़ा सा पीछे जो हमने जो कोहेरेंस टाइम स्टडी किया था उससे एक क्वेश्चन था मेरा कि सर कोहेरेंस टाइम तो मुझे बेसिकली ये बता रहा होता है कि मेरा इतने टाइम के लिए मेरा जो चैनल है वो सेम होगा, उसके बाद कोहेरेंस टाइम के बाद मेरा चैनल जो है वो चेंज हो जाएगा. तो अगर मेरा जो सिग्नल है वो कोहेरेंस टाइम से अगर उसका जो सिग्नल का जो सिंपल टाइम है वो अगर उससे थोड़ा होगा, तो सर इसका मुझे मतलब समझ नहीं आया कि उसको सेम फेडिंग में नहीं, मतलब उसको कोरिलेटेड नहीं रहना चाहिए, क्योंकि अब वो जो अभी मेरा चैनल जो है वो इतनी तेजी से चेंज नहीं हो रहा जितनी तेजी से मेरा सिग्नल चेंज हो रहा है. तो इसमें जरा थोड़ा बता दो, और अगर मेरा जो कोहेरेंस टाइम कम होगा और जो सिग्नल
जी उसमें उस्मान, अगर if your symbol interval is really small, if your symbol interval is really small, then your coherence time, meaning that sorry, if your coherence time is really small compared to your symbol interval, that means your coherence time is changing within the symbol interval. So for example, in one symbol interval, you have tens of hundreds of coherence times. So you're moving at such a fast speed that your coherence, you have multiple coherence times within the symbol interval. Then that fading would be averaged out. So if you are moving really fast, you can have that fading average out. And that is what we see when we look at the Doppler spread. And one of the topics that we have not studied, that would be the next topic that we're going to study, is that if you are really moving very fast, if your channel is changing very, very fast, and if you are using differential phase shift keying, then your performance actually improves as you increase your data rate. So what you do is, if you make your symbol intervals smaller and smaller, so that you get higher and higher data rate, so that you can so that so that fading because of the coherence time gets averaged out. So let me actually I have to use some board or something to explain this. I have that in the slides as well. But to answer your question, Soban, your coherence time here, when you're talking about the average symbol error probability, it's not smaller than, much smaller than the symbol interval. It is of the order of the symbol interval here, right? That means you would get single bit errors here. Whenever the error is induced, you get single bit error. Even if your coherence time, your symbol interval is greater than your coherence time, even then, whenever the errors are introduced, they would be single bit errors. And whenever you are encountering single bit errors, then average symbol error probability would make more sense, right? And then later on in the discussion, we would talk about that Doppler spread thing, where you improve your performance by increasing your data rate. That is coming. That slide is coming. Does that answer your question, Suman?
यस सर, इसके ऊपर तो डिस्कशन तो मैं बाद में भी आपसे कर लूँगा कि सिंगल बिट एरर्स और जो एरर्स इन बर्स्ट है वो कब आएंगे।
अच्छा, जहाँ तक आपका ये बिल्कुल सही, जहाँ तक आपका ये कहना था ना कि चैनल सेम रहता है, चैनल सेम नहीं रहता. We are talking about in the stochastic sense. We said that the coherence time is the time where your channel would remain correlated. So it is expected that your channel would be correlated within this coherence time. And once your correlation is related, you would always talk in the stochastic sense. इस तरह नहीं कहेंगे कि channel same रहेगा, it would remain correlated. That's what you can say.
सर अगर जो मेरा जो सिग्नल बेसिकली है वो कोहेरेंस, जो सिग्नल ड्यूरेशन है वो कोहेरेंस टाइम से काफ़ी ज़्यादा हो, तो सर फिर इसमें सिंगल बिट एरर्स ही आएंगे कि एरर्स इन बर्स्ट आएंगे? फिर
एरर इन बर्स्ट आएंगे. सॉरी नहीं, अगर आपका सिंपल इंटरवल कोहेरेंस टाइम से ज़्यादा हो, बहुत ज़्यादा हो, तब भी सिंगल बिट एरर आएंगे, क्योंकि आपका चैनल जो है आपका कोहेरेंस टाइम बहुत छोटा है. जी
सर, अब तो उसको अनकोरिलेटेड होना चाहिए ना, क्योंकि कोहेरेंस टाइम बहुत छोटा है, तो जो कोहेरेंस टाइम यानी कि जो जिस ड्यूरेशन में मेरा चैनल कोरिलेटेड है वो काफ़ी थोड़ा है, तो इसमें भी एरर्स इन बर्स्ट नहीं आना चाहिए?
नहीं, इसमें जो आपकी जो एरर्स हैं that would get averaged out in the single symbol interval. Within the same symbol interval, your fading is so fast कि within a single symbol interval आपके multiple coherence times आ गए हैं. So that thing would get averaged out in the single interval, and then you would get no fading as a way. आपकी fading एक लिहाज से खत्म हो जाएगी because your channel is changing so fast. Okay, so now let's talk about the Doppler effects, and it would be the discussion on the similar lines actually. Your Doppler, so this is a topic. This is in a way the new topic. So I'll also try to make a video about it. I thought, or probably I would make use of the video that is being recorded here. So the Doppler effect is one of the two things that we are going to study that cause what is called the irreducible error flows. So if you have very high Doppler, so you can have irreducible error flows, especially in the case of the differential modulations. So differential modulations, they have, as you know, the previous symbol acts as a reference for the next symbol. And if you have very high Doppler, then that would mean that if your channel has changed from one symbol to another, so the assumption for the differential modulation is that your channel would remain correlated over two symbols at least, so that your phase of the previous symbol can act as a reference for the current symbol. But in the meantime, if your channel has changed, then your reference would get corrupted. And once your reference has been corrupted, then it would reduce you. It would mean that you cannot decode your signal, and as a result, you would have error despite you may have very high signal to noise ratio, but still you would get what are called the irreducible error flow. So regardless of what transmit power you transmit signal at, you would get a lots of error because the reference gets corrupted. So this is how Doppler spread cause irreducible error flows. And this irreducible error flows, of course, would depend on your Doppler frequency. So this is an approximate formula for Rayleigh fading, where on the left hand side you have this P floor, and on the right hand side you have this this formula for the P floor, which depends on both your bit interval and your Doppler, maximum Doppler frequency that you get. So higher the Doppler, your P floor would also be higher. So for that, using the same formula, I've made this table here that if you have this data rate, which is, for example, 10 kilobits per second, which would mean that you have a TB, which is your bit interval of 1 millisecond, you get a P floor of 3 into 10 to the minus 4 bits error probability of this P floor. That means after this, no matter what you do, no matter what signal power you use, you would not get an improved error performance beyond this. So the other thing which you can do, if you can look at the previous formula, if you reduce your bit interval, that would mean that your P floor should reduce, and that is what you do. So if you increase your data rate, that means you reduce your bit interval, your P floor gets reduced, and 3 into 10 to the minus 8 is the P floor you would happily accept, because that is typically, even in the data communications, you want 10 to the power minus 6 bit error probability is good enough for almost all applications. And if you want to further lower this P floor, you can further increase your data rate. So this is what I meant when I was referring to the Doppler spread improving your performance with your increased data rate. So this is one of the few equations, one of the rarest equations you can have, where increasing your data rate is improving your performance as well. If you increase data rate, you get a lower P floor. That is pretty unique, and that is for two reasons. One, we are using differential phase shift keying, where your reference is depending upon the previous symbol that was transmitted, and as a result, an increased data rate would mean that you would get out of it's more likely that your channel would stay correlated for at least two symbols, and hence you would have a lower P floor. So higher the data rate, the better the performance. So if your symbol interval is less than the coherence time, the probability of error is not dominated by error flows, right? So if your symbol interval, so you reduce your symbol interval so that it becomes lower than your coherence time, and as a result, your performance would not be dominated by the error flows. And that's what we are seeing here. You reduce your symbol interval, and your error flow would go down. Right? For a given target error flow, you can have an upper bound here. So this bounds your symbol rate, which is an upper bound on the symbol rate. So Doppler effect would want that your TB is less than a certain bound, right? Which in a way is a good thing. That means you would for a higher data rate, you would get a better performance. So this is a bound you can have on your symbol interval because of the Doppler spread. Another effect that can also lead to an irreducible error flows is what is called the intersymbol interference. So intersymbol interference can also lead to an irreducible error flows. And the reason is that if you have intersymbol interference, that means your delay spread is such large enough that adjacent symbols may be affected by the same self interference. Then no matter what you do, your interference power would also increase by the increase in the transmit power, and as a result you would get an irreducible error flow. These irreducible error flows because of the ISI are typically characterized by the simulations, and you can get an idea that you would have a bound on your symbol interval vis-a-vis your delay spread. So if your sigma Tm is your delay spread, you can there was some simulation that the textbook cites, and that says that, for example, you can, if you want to achieve a p floor of 10 to the power minus 2 or lower, then this sigma Tm over Ts should be less than 0.1. That means you should have a Ts which is greater than 10 times your delay spread. Yeah? Only then you would get a reasonable p floor, which is 10 to the power minus 2, although it's not a very reasonable p floor, but intersymbol interference causes such a bad effect onto the performance of your performance. That means you must have a symbol interval greater than 10 Tm, and that is a killer blow, because the sigma Tm typically is of the order of 2.5 microsecond in an urban environment. That would mean what? That would mean that your symbol interval must be greater than 10 times 2.5 microsecond. That means it should be greater than 25 microseconds. And as a result, it puts constraints on your data rate. That means your data rate must be less than 40 kilo symbols per second. And that is by no means acceptable for 3G, 4G systems, let alone 5G systems, which require tens of gigabits per second of data rate. So this intersymbol interference is such a killer blow in terms of the performance, and you must do something to avoid intersymbol interference so that you can transmit higher data rate. Any questions here about this?
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है
जी जी
सर, ये वाला जो अभी आप मटेरियल पढ़ा रहे हैं, ये जो आपने कल जो लेटेस्ट जो वीडियो अपलोड की थी उसको फॉलो कर रहे हैं, उसके बाद का ये मतलब ये, क्योंकि
ये जो
चीजें कनेक्ट करने में थोड़ा इशू हो रहा है.
जी Doppler spread and ISI effects, this is in a way the new material. ये तो अभी किसी वीडियो में हमने नहीं डिस्कस किया हुआ.
सर तो इसका आप इसकी वो वीडियो बनाएंगे या मतलब यही रिकॉर्डिंग से ये करना पड़ेगा?
I would verify if this recording is reasonably good, then I may upload this, or I would make a new video for this. I think I would make a new video for this as well. But in a way, this is an introduction to this topic. So we would have a review in a way, another video regarding this.
सर वैसे ये नेक्स्ट वीक का मटेरियल है या ये इसी वीक का है?
You should consider as a next week material. like एक लिहाज से आपको introduction मिल रहा है for the next week's material.
ठीक है सर.
Definitely for next week का material है.
क्योंकि सर वो अभी पिछले वीक के भी कुछ हैं जो अभी बुक से भी देखने पड़ेंगे और खुद से भी करना पड़ेगा.
बिल्कुल सही.
तो इसलिए वेरीफाई करना चाह रहा था कि अभी इसी वीक का है या ये नेक्स्ट वीक है.
बिल्कुल ठीक है, बिल्कुल सही है. So let's stop here. By the way, that was pretty much it. I was just trying to make you realize that these are the two things. One is the Doppler spread. One is the intersymbol interference. Intuitively, it should be clear that they would cause irreducible error flows. What do we mean by irreducible error flows? Is that no matter what transmit power you transmit, they would not lower your symbol error probability, because increasing your transmit power would increase your interference as well. As a result, it would not impact any it would not impact your error probability equation. So it's a pretty much qualitative. It's not very detailed, and we're not going to study it in a much more detail than what we have, what I have stated here. तो ये हमने बहुत ज़्यादा डिटेल में पढ़ना नहीं है ये वाले टॉपिक्स, राइट? So it's just a qualitative idea why these things must be taken care of, so that when it comes to next videos, we can learn about things which improve your performance under the fading scenarios, or under these scenarios where you have large number of interference. So that is why you need interference mitigation techniques. That is why you need something which gives you independent fading path, so that you can improve your performance. जी वलीद, ठीक है? So
सर बस एक रिक्वेस्ट थी कि इसका जब आप इसकी अगर वीडियो बनाएंगे तो, या इवन अगर आगे की बनाएंगे जिससे ये लिंक हो, तो आप थोड़ा सा इसका ब्रीफली रिव्यू कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि मुझे लग रहा है कि थोड़े से इशू हैं इसमें.
I would make a new video for that. I would make a
thank you sir, thank you
that, but it will not be detailed one, as I've said. ये जो टॉपिक्स हैं हमने बहुत डिटेल में नहीं पढ़ने, तो जो भी लेकिन let me make a new video for that, and I would upload that in the next week, so that you don't have to worry about this now.
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू सो मच. अच्छा सर, मेरे कुछ एक आध सवाल थे वो पिछले मटेरियल से रिलेटेड, क्योंकि उसकी थोड़ी सी डिस्कशन आई नहीं, तो वो मैं
जी मैं वही करने लगा हूँ. So let me share the other. You can see this white paper here.
जी सर.
Let me start my Dwight cam here as well. Give me a second. Let me do this again. Okay. Let's start with the connections of questions of Waleed, and then we'll start. Subhan ने भी कुछ questions करने हैं.
तो सर मेरा जो पहला सवाल है वो ये है कि जब हम वो नियरेस्ट नेबर अप्रोक्सीमेशन डिफाइन कर रहे थे उसकी, तो हमने उसमें एक MD min एक आपने एक इंट्रोड्यूस कराया था.
जी
सर उसकी कुछ इंट्यूशन नहीं बन सकी कि MD min असल में है क्या.
ओके. Let me change the. Okay. So, for example, do you have these? You can see my screen here. Waleed, you can see my screen here. So you have 3 constellation points here. Waleed, can you hear me?
सर आपकी आवाज आ रही है लेकिन लैग काफी आ रहा है आपकी आवाज में भी।
अब आवाज आ रही है आपको क्लियर?
जी जी सर अब आ रही है।
So what you can see, what can you see on the screen?
सर line with three dots.
Right. Okay. So अब इसके अंदर जो constellation points, let's consider these are the 3 constellation points for pulse amplitude modulation. ठीक है? अब इसमें जो center वाला constellation point है उसके number of neighbors कितने हैं?
सर 2।
उसके 2 हैं, right? और जो दोनों साइड वाले हैं उसके number of neighbors कितने हैं?
वो 1 है सर।
1 है। So this is what you mean by nearest neighbors. For example, दोनों जो हैं उसका distance equal है, right? So if you consider this point in the middle, I'm sorry about this lag. I don't know. Even videos बनाते वक्त भी मुझे काफी lag की वजह से issue है. I have to make multiple videos. But if you think that ये जो middle वाला जो point है, middle वाला जो point है, that it would have two nearest neighbors. और जो राइट साइड वाले जो पॉइंट्स हैं, जो लेफ्ट वाला पॉइंट है, उनके उसके 1 नियरेस्ट नेबर है। नियरेस्ट इसलिए कि दोनों के डिस्टेंस बराबर है। So if you want to find out what is the maximum number of nearest neighbor in this constellation, जो सेंटर वाला जो पॉइंट है, it has 2 nearest neighbors.
Yes sir.
So if you are using an approximation where your simple error probability is MD min times Q function of root D min over root 2n0, for example, and MD min you would take 2. If you are doing an exact analysis that we did for pulse amplitude modulation, for example, where we said that if we would use the nearest neighbor approximation, but we would still do an exact analysis. That means for the 2 constellation points which lie on the outer edge of the Emery modulation, MPAM, pulse amplitude modulation, the number of nearest neighbors would be 1. But for all other M-2 constellation points, you would have number of nearest neighbors equals to 2. Okay? So that is what you mean by number of nearest neighbors. So let me restart my Android cam. Probably that sometimes it works. Jivli, does this answer your question?
सर आपकी आवाज रुक गई थी बीच में।
Let me explain again. So for example, you have this 4-ary PAM. So now you can see what I'm writing on the paper as well.
Yes sir. Yes.
You have these 4 constellation points for m is equals to 4. So you have m is equals to 4, and we are talking about pulse amplitude modulation.
ठीक है सर।
So for these 2 constellation points, this one and this one, how many? Again, there's a lag. Sorry about that. For the constellation points in the middle, these 2 constellation points, you have 2 nearest neighbors.
Yes sir.
For the constellation points on the edge, meaning this one, let me wait for this one. For this one, you have how many nearest neighbors?
1.
You have only 1 nearest neighbor. So that means if the noise pushes you on to the left, it would cause problems. But if the noise pushes to the right, it would not cause any problem in terms of the decision making. So as a result, you have to multiply with only 1 nearest neighbor here for these constellation points. And that is why when we computed or wrote down the expression for the simple error probability for Emery PAM, we for 2 constellation points we used only 1 nearest neighbor, and for m-2 constellation points, meaning this is m-2 constellation points, you would have 2 nearest neighbors.
ठीक है सर.
Now let's talk about, for example, you have a QAM modulation, say 16 QAM, right? Now the concept of the nearest neighbor should be more clear, because this is the nearest neighbor to this guy. If you're focusing on the constellation point with an arrow, this is the nearest neighbor to this constellation point. Let me wait for my marker to appear. So the constellation point with the arrow, Waleed, how many nearest neighbors it has got?
सर nearest neighbor अगर हम diagonal consider करें कि नहीं करें वो?
Diagonal would not be a nearest neighbor, क्योंकि diagonal का जो distance है that would be more than this the adjacent ones. How much nearest neighbor?
आप in terms of distance पूछ रहे हैं कि nearest कितने?
जी, in terms of distance, of course. Whenever we talk about nearest neighbors, we talk about in terms of distance.
तो सर ये तो दो होंगे अगर नीचे वाले का भी distance same है.
तीन नहीं हो जाएंगे?
सर आप किसकी edge वाले की बात कर रहे हैं या?
जिसके
अच्छा ठीक है, हाँ तीन हो जाएंगे.
जिसके ऊपर arrow है.
तीन हो जाएंगे.
This would be one nearest neighbor. This would be another nearest neighbor, and this would be another nearest neighbor. It would take some time to appear. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So, in this constellation, what is the maximum number of nearest neighbor for any particular constellation points?
Sir, वो 3 है.
वो 3 तो इस arrow वाले के लिए है ना. Now focus on this one.
सर 4 भी हो सकते हैं.
इसके nearest neighbor 4 हैं. So the maximum number of nearest neighbors that you would get for a QAM 16 QAM modulation is 4.
Yes, sir.
So when you use MD min in a 16 QAM modulation, you would use 4.
Okay, ठीक है सर, clear हो गया.
जी, और कोई क्वेश्चन जी? सुभान ने भी हाथ रेज किया हुआ है. वलीद, I would first complete yours and then we'll go towards सुभान.
अच्छा सर, एक और था. मैं अभी आप चाहे सुभान का क्वेश्चन ले लें, मैं थोड़ा सा उसको अपने नोट्स में ढूंढ रहा हूँ.
बिल्कुल ठीक है. सुभान, गो अहेड प्लीज.
सर मैंने पूछना था कि जो नियरेस्ट नेबर अप्रोक्सीमेशन है सर, ये सिर्फ नॉन स्क्वेयर्ड कॉन्स्टेलेशन के लिए वैलिड है कि हम इसको जो दूसरे जैसे स्क्वेयर्ड कॉन्स्टेलेशन उनके लिए भी इसको अप्लाई कर सकते हैं? क्योंकि हम आपने उसमें नोट्स में तो आपने जो स्क्वेयर्ड वाले हैं उनके लिए हर एक के लिए पहले आपने एरर प्रोबेबिलिटी निकाली, फिर एवरेज एरर प्रोबेबिलिटी आपने निकाली थी. जी,
तो जो पल्स एम्पलीट्यूड मॉड्यूलेशन के अंदर तो हमें स्पेसिफिकली पता था कि कौन से पॉइंट्स के लिए कितने नियरेस्ट नेबर्स हैं. So what we computed is in a way an exact error probability equation for pulse amplitude modulation. For PSK, for example, for pulse phase shift keying, it is very difficult to compute the exact error probability equation. वहां पर फिर आप ये nearest neighbor approximation लेते हैं. For example, ये QAM modulation है. इसके अंदर इसको अगर आपने exact निकालना है,
बहुत लैग आ रहा है.
ओके, अगर आपकी क्वाड्रेचर एम्पलीट्यूड मॉडल अब आ रही, बेहतर है आवाज सुभान?
यस सर.
तो जो क्वाड्रेचर एम्पलीट्यूड मॉड्यूलेशन है इसकी भी आप एग्जैक्ट निकाल सकते हैं, बट दैट इज अ वेरी डिफिकल्ट इक्वेशन जिसके लिए आपको पल्स एम्पलीट्यूड मॉड्यूलेशन की प्रोजेक्शन करके दोनों एक्सिस पे फिर एग्जैक्ट सिंबल एरर प्रोबेबिलिटी इक्वेशन निकाल सकते हैं. व्हाट पीपल यूज इज that in the case of QAM as well, they make use of the nearest neighbor approximation. So what they say is कि जो आपकी simple error probability है, that is MD min, Q function of D min over root 2 n naught, where MD min is the maximum number of nearest neighbors, which I have said is 4 in this case. So it depends on the designer. The answer to your question is, it depends on the designer what approximation is good enough for him. For this course, the focus is not on deriving the exact error probability equation, but rather making use of this expression that your simple error probability would be of this sort: alpha m q function of root beta m gamma s. So this is good enough for this course, because we know that these alpha m and beta m would depend on what type of modulation scheme you are using, what type of approximation you are using, and then you have to extend this simple error probability to beyond the AWGN channel. That means you need to find out what is the average simple error probability under fading. Right? So exact expression is not the goal of this course at all. सही है सुभान?
ये भी can be approximation use कर सकते हैं for squared और non-squared.
जी कर सकते हैं, अगर unless आपको given है कोई चीज. अगर आपको कोई ऐसा क्वेश्चन है जिसमें given है कि जी for example use this approximation or use this expression, then of course you cannot. लेकिन अगर for example आपने analysis करना है, generic analysis करना है, so then you can use of this expression. So this expression is used a lot. This expression is used to find out what is the average simple error probability under fading. So you have to average this out over the fading distribution. Subhan, you have more question because Abdullah has also raised his hand.
नहीं सर,
Abdullah, please go ahead, जी. Abdullah, please go.
एक्सप्रेशन है इसमें बीटा क्या सर, ये जो एक्सप्रेशन अभी आपने लिखा है इसमें जो बीटा एम है वो बैंडविड्थ है अंडर रूट के अंदर?
नहीं, not at all bandwidth. These are constants. So alpha m and beta m are constants. For example, if you have BPSK, then your simple error probability under AWGN is q function of root 2 gamma b. In this case, alpha would be equals to 1 and beta would be equals to 2. So it depends on what modulation scheme you are using. So this expression, which is boxed in black, is a generic expression that can be used for any type of modulation scheme, for any type of approximation. But for example, you are talking about a specific modulation scheme, BPSK, then this beta and alpha would have specific values. For example, in this case, your alpha m would be equal to 1 and your beta m would be equal to 2. Sahi, Abdullah?
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Waleed, you had another question?
Yes, sir. एक क्वेश्चन है वो जो शुरू में आपने जब सिग्नल स्पेस कॉन्सेप्ट पढ़ाया था तो आपने उस वीडियो में बात की थी कि we represent या map the infinite dimensional signal into a finite dimensional vector space.
जी जी.
तो सर infinite dimension आप किस चीज को कह रहे थे? वो टाइम को कह रहे थे?
टाइम ही इनफाइनाइट बनती है ना, टाइम डायमेंशन इनफाइनाइट बनती है, तो आप उसको टाइम वाली डायमेंशन को खत्म करके यू मैप ऑन टू द वेक्टर स्पेस. यस.
तो सर लेकिन जिसके हम मैप कर रहे थे थ्रू हमारी जो बेसिस थी, तो हमारी बेसिस भी तो मतलब वो टाइम डिपेंडेंट ही थी, तो मतलब हम बेसिस भी हमारी इनफिनिट डायमेंशन में है.
आपकी वो जो बेसिस फंक्शन है वो आपकी डायमेंशन बन जाती है ना, दे इन इटसेल्फ इज वन ऑफ द डायमेंशंस. तो yeah, I get your question. So इसको आप इस तरीके से आपको देखना चाहिए कि आपका जो सिग्नल है उसकी जो टाइम वेरिएशन है उसको आप मैप कर देते हैं onto the वेक्टर स्पेस, जहां पर आप वेक्टर अलजेब्रा और वेक्टर के डिस्टेंसेस यूज करते हुए आप बहुत सारा एनालिसिस कर लेते हैं. तो आप you forget about the time dimension altogether. ये टाइम डायमेंशन में उसकी शेप क्या है, आपके सिग्नल की शेप क्या है, आपकी पल्स की शेप क्या है. So all of that is in the background, and this analysis which you're doing on two-dimensional constellations is good enough to find out what is the performance under different scenarios. So yes, in a way I get your point that these dimensions are also अगर आप उस तरीके से लेते हैं तो your dimension itself is an infinite dimensional space, but you don't see like this. So आप इसको जब आप draw कर लेते हैं तो on this axis you have phi 1 of t, on the other axis you have phi 2 of t. And then you're concerned about the distances of different constellation points relative to each other.
ठीक है सर.
Any more questions? I would take your feedback. All of you think that we are going too fast. Waleed, I would let you answer first, and then Subhan, and then.
सर जो मेरी फील, क्योंकि मैंने तो डिजिटल मॉड्यूलेशन का कोर्स भी लिया नहीं ना हुआ, तो मुझे ये लग रहा है कि इस हफ्ते में स्पेसिफिकली इस हफ्ते में मटेरियल काफी ज्यादा हो गया कवर करने के लिए ना.
राइट.
ये तो शायद इसलिए क्योंकि मैंने कोर्स लिया नहीं हुआ.
राइट. सुभान, आपकी क्या फीलिंग है?
सर मैंने भी डिजिटल कम्युनिकेशन का कोर्स लिया हुआ है, तो
राइट बिल्कुल सही है. तो अच्छा, मैंने टोटल ड्यूरेशन देखी थी जो कि मैंने अपलोड की है, दैट अगर आप लास्ट वीडियो जो 30 मिनट्स की उसको ना काउंट करें और यू टेक इट एज अ मटेरियल फॉर द नेक्स्ट वीक, तो जो टोटल ड्यूरेशन ऑफ द वीडियोस अपलोडेड है दैट इज ऑलमोस्ट ऑफ द सेम लेंथ जितना हमारा क्लास का लेक्चर होता है. But now I understand, of course, कि class के अंदर you have question and answer sessions which reduce your speed. This is a very consolidated kind of video जिसके अंदर you have lots of concepts given in small amount of time. Although I've tried not to rush at all. Okay, let me stop sharing and stop recording. And then I would